Your engine is shaking. The check engine light just came on. You take it to the dealer, and they hit you with a diagnostic fee of $150 just to tell you what is wrong. Then they quote you $700 to $1,100 for new ignition coils and spark plugs. On a BMW, that number can hit $1,200. On a Porsche, you are looking at over $1,300. And here is the worst part. Most of the time, the actual fix costs under $50 in parts and takes less than 10 minutes with a single wrench. German mechanics have been using a systematic elimination method for decades to diagnose and fix engine misfires without guessing, without expensive scan tools, and without paying a shop a dime of labor. Today, I am going to walk you through that exact method, step by step. By the end of this video, you will be able to diagnose and fix 80% of engine misfires yourself in your own driveway for a fraction of what any shop would charge. And this does not just work on German cars. This method works on Toyotas, Hondas, Fords, Chevys, everything with a modern engine. First, let us understand what a misfire actually is. Because if you do not know what is happening inside your engine, you cannot fix it. Your engine needs exactly three things to run properly: spark, fuel, and compression. Every cylinder in your engine goes through a combustion cycle. Air and fuel get pulled in. The piston compresses that mixture. A spark plug ignites it, and the explosion pushes the piston down, creating the power that moves your car. A misfire happens when one or more cylinders fails to complete that cycle. Maybe the spark plug did not fire. Maybe the fuel injector did not spray. Maybe the compression leaked out. Whatever the cause, that cylinder produces no power while the others keep firing normally. The result is an engine that shakes, stumbles, loses power, burns more fuel, and eventually destroys your catalytic converter if you ignore it long enough. A catalytic converter replacement runs $800 to $2,200. So a misfire is not something you just live with. It is a problem that gets more expensive every mile you drive. Now here is where the German method comes in. BMW, Mercedes, Audi, Volkswagen, and Porsche engineers designed their engines with something called coil-on-plug ignition. Instead of one big ignition coil feeding spark through wires to every cylinder, each cylinder has its own individual ignition coil sitting directly on top of its own spark plug. This design was a game changer for performance, but it also accidentally created the single, easiest diagnostic method in automotive history. German mechanics figured out early on that instead of throwing parts at a problem and hoping for the best, you can use the engine itself as a diagnostic tool. It is a process of elimination, and it takes about 10 minutes. Step 1. Read the code. You need a basic OBD2 scanner. You can buy one for $20 on Amazon, or most auto parts stores like AutoZone, O'Reilly, and Advance Auto Parts will scan your car for free. Plug the scanner into the OBD2 port under your dash near the steering column. Every car built after 1996 has one. The scanner will give you a code. You're looking for P0300 through P0308. P0300 means random misfires across multiple cylinders. P0301 means cylinder 1 is misfiring. P0302 means cylinder 2. 0304 means cylinder 4. The last digit tells you the exact cylinder. Write that number down. This is your starting point. Without this code, you're just guessing. And guessing is how $50 problems become $500 problems. Step 2. The coil swap test. This is the heart of the German method, and it's brilliantly simple. Let's say your scanner shows P0304, a misfire on cylinder 4. Pop the hood. On most modern engines, the ignition coils sit right on top of the engine, usually held in by a single bolt or clip. You do not need a lift. You do not need specialty tools. You need one socket wrench, typically an 8mm or 10mm, depending on the car. Remove the ignition coil from cylinder 4, the misfiring cylinder. Now remove the ignition coil from cylinder 1, a cylinder that you know is working fine. Swap them. Put the cylinder 4 coil onto cylinder 1 and the cylinder 1 coil onto cylinder 4. Clear the codes with your scanner. Start the engine and drive it for a few minutes. Now scan again. Here's where the magic happens. If the misfire code moved from P0304 to P0301, congratulations! You just confirmed that the ignition coil is the problem. The bad coil traveled with the fault. You now know exactly what's wrong, and you diagnosed it for free. A replacement ignition coil costs $20 to $50 for most cars. Even for a BMW, genuine Bosch coils run about $30 each online. Compare that to the $700 dealer quote. You just saved over $650 and about 3 hours sitting in a waiting room drinking bad coffee. But what if the misfire code stayed on cylinder 4? That means the coil is not the problem. The coil you moved to cylinder 1 is working fine there, and cylinder 4 is still misfiring with a known good coil. So now you move to step 3. Step 3, the spark plug swap. Same principle. Remove the spark plug from cylinder 4 and swap it with the spark plug from cylinder 1. Use a spark plug socket with a rubber insert to grip the plug, and use an extension bar because spark plugs sit deep in the cylinder head. Clear the codes again, start the engine, drive it, and rescan. If the misfire followed the spark plug to cylinder 1, that is your culprit. Iridium plugs, the ones most modern engines use, run $15 to $25 and can last up to 100,000 miles. A new spark plug costs $6 to $25 depending on the type. Copper plugs are cheapest at $2 to $5 each, but they wear out faster. Even replacing all 4 or 6 spark plugs yourself costs $60 to $100 in parts. A dealer charges $250 to $600 for the same job. On a BMW or Audi, that number easily hits $400 to $500 for spark plugs alone. Now, I know what you are thinking. What if neither the coil nor the spark plug fixed it? Good question. That is actually valuable diagnostic information. If you have swapped both the coil and the plug and the misfire is still stuck on the same cylinder, you have just eliminated the 2 most common causes. You now know it is either a fuel injector issue or a mechanical problem. That is when you move to step 4. Before we get to step 4, you hit that like button if you're learning something new. It really helps the channel. Step 4. Check the fuel injector. Each cylinder has its own fuel injector. You can do a quick test without any special tools. Get a long screwdriver or a mechanic's stethoscope, which costs about $8. Place the tip of the screwdriver against the fuel injector body and press your ear to the handle. A working injector makes a rapid clicking sound as it opens and closes. Do this on every injector. If the one on your misfiring cylinder is silent or sounds different from the rest, you've found your problem. A replacement fuel injector runs $30 to $150 depending on the car, and swapping one usually involves 4 to 6 bolts and a fuel line clip. Still way cheaper than a shop visit. Step 5. The vacuum leak check. This one is huge, and it is where a lot of mechanics get it wrong. A cracked intake boot, a torn vacuum hose, or a bad gasket can let unmetered air into the engine, throw off the air-fuel mixture, and cause misfires on 1 or more cylinders. One BMW shop shared a story about a customer who replaced spark plugs, ignition coils, and a fuel injector based on a P0304 code from a cheap scanner. Total spent was over $500 on unnecessary parts. The actual problem was a cracked intake boot causing unmetered air. The fix should have cost under $200. Here is the free way to check. With the engine idling, spray a small amount of carburetor cleaner, or brake cleaner around the intake manifold gaskets, vacuum hoses, and any rubber boots. If the engine ORPM suddenly changes when you spray a specific area, you have found your leak. That is air getting sucked in where it should not be. Replacing a cracked vacuum hose costs $5 to $15. An intake manifold gasket set runs $20 to $40. Even a new intake boot for a BMW is under $50 online. Now here is the part that nobody talks about, and it is especially critical if you drive anything with a direct injection engine. That includes most BMW models since 2007, most Audis and Volkswagens since 2008, and nearly every turbocharged engine made in the last 15 years. Carbon buildup on the intake valves is the issue. In older engines, fuel sprayed onto the back of the intake valves, which naturally cleaned them every time the engine ran. Direct injection engines spray fuel straight into the combustion chamber, bypassing the valves entirely. So over time, oil vapors from the crankcase ventilation system bake onto the intake valves, forming thick carbon deposits that restrict airflow. By 60,000 to 80,000 miles, these deposits can cause rough idling, hesitation under acceleration, misfires at cold start, and noticeable power loss. The problem is gradual, so most owners do not even realize how much performance they have lost until it is cleaned. The fix is called walnut blasting. Crushed walnut shells are blasted at high pressure onto the valve surfaces to remove the carbon without damaging the metal. It is the same technique that Porsche, BMW, and Audi dealerships use. The cost ranges from $700 to $1,200 at a shop. But here is the thing. If you catch it early or do preventive maintenance, you can slow the buildup significantly by using top-tier fuel, changing your oil on time, and letting the engine reach full operating temperature before shutting it off. Short trips where the engine never fully warms up are the #1 accelerator of carbon buildup. Let me break down the total cost comparison so you understand what we are talking about. Taking your car to the dealership for a misfire diagnosis costs $80 to $150 just for the scan. Then they charge $100 to $200 per hour for labor. Spark plug replacement at a dealer runs $250 to $600. Ignition coil replacement is $300 to $1,100, depending on the car. A BMW dealer quoted one owner $1,100 just for 6 ignition coils and spark plugs. An independent German car shop quoted $750 for the exact same job. That same owner could have bought the coils and plugs online for under $200 and done it himself in 45 minutes with a single socket wrench. Here is the DIY breakdown. An OBD2 scanner costs $20, and you only buy it once. A set of 4 iridium spark plugs costs $50 to $60. A single replacement ignition coil costs $20 to $50. Dielectric grease and anti-seize cost $14. Total for the most common misfire fix is under $100, and that is if you replace both the plug and the coil. Compare that to $700 to $1,100 at the dealer. You are saving anywhere from $600 to over $1,000 on what is genuinely a 10-minute job once you know which part is bad. Let me tell you what to look for when you pull out those spark plugs, because they tell a story. A healthy spark plug has a light tan or gray electrode. That means the engine is running clean. A spark plug caked in black, oily carbon means the engine is burning oil. That points to worn valve seals or piston rings. A deeper problem. A white or blistered electrode means the engine is running too hot or too lean. A spark plug with a worn or eroded electrode simply means it is past its service life and needs replacing. The gap between the electrodes matters too. If the gap is wider than specification, the coil has to work harder to fire the spark, which accelerates coil failure. Most modern engines specify a gap between 0.028 inches and 0.060 inches. A simple feeler gauge costs $5 and tells you instantly whether the gap is within range. One more critical tip: if your check engine light is flashing, Not just staying on, but actively flashing while you are driving. Pull over as soon as it is safe. A flashing check engine light means active misfires are happening right now, and unburned fuel is being dumped straight into the catalytic converter. That fuel can ignite inside the converter and overheat it. Keep driving, and you will melt a $1,200 part. I have seen owners ignore a flashing check engine light for a week and turn a $30 ignition coil failure into a $2,500 repair bill. Do not be that person. So let's recap the German method. Step 1. Scan for codes and identify the misfiring cylinder. Step 2. Swap the ignition coil to another cylinder and see if the misfire follows. Step 3. If the coil was not the issue, swap the spark plug. Step 4. If both check out, test the fuel injector with a screwdriver stethoscope method. Step 5. Check for vacuum leaks with a can of carb cleaner. This systematic elimination process solves 80% of all engine misfires for under $100 in your driveway with basic hand tools. The remaining 20% are compression-related mechanical issues, bad wiring harnesses, or failing engine computers, and those genuinely do need a professional. But 8 times out of 10, it is a $25 spark plug or a $35 ignition coil causing all the drama. The reason this works so well is because German engineers designed these engines to be modular. Every coil is identical. Every plug is the same. They unplug, they swap, they plug back in. You do not need specialized dealer software. You do not need a $5,000 scan tool. You need a $20 scanner, 1 wrench, and 10 minutes of patience. That is the German method. Precision through elimination. No guessing, no parts cannon, no $1,000 shop bills. That's everything for today. If this video saved you money or taught you something new, smash that like button. It genuinely helps more people find this content. Subscribe and hit the bell so you do not miss the next one. Drop a comment and let me know what car you drive and whether you have dealt with a misfire before. I read every single one. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.